What if I told you that smoking your brisket at home doesn't have to be a mystery? Trust me, I tried out enough briskets to feed an entire football team. But after a lot of trial and error, finally found a simple, foolproof way in order to cook a brisket. And I'm going to be sharing my 5-step method to get perfect brisket every single time. And I promise, if I can get it right, you can get it right too. Let's get started. All right. The first step is going to be picking the right cut of meat. And we're going to be looking for a brisket. And that brisket comes in a couple different options. You had the point, which is going to be a thicker piece of the meat. This is going to have all the fat in it, and it's going to be the most delicious. Then you're going to have the flap. This is going to be the thinner part and the part that typically dries out if you don't do it right. And then you have the whole packer brisket, and this is going to be a combination of the two muscles. And that's going to be my preferred brisket, and that's going to be the one that I have on this smoker right now. I personally look for a brisket that has a good amount of marbling, and that's going to be those thin little white streaks that are going throughout the meat. And I want this within the meat, not just on the fat cap. And I want one that is very red in color. I'm not looking for a brisket that is light pink or within the packaging has a lot of juice. What I want is a deep red color and not a lot of juice within the packaging. If they're adding juice, you know there's not a lot of fat. You know that's not a high quality brisket. Once you get the right brisket, it's all about prepping it. And that's what we're going to do now in step number 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and trim this brisket. We're going to trim off any loose and hanging bits. And this is going to be fat. This is going to be meat. And we're just going to go ahead and square up, make sure that our edges are nice and straight. This is going to help with airflow. And there's going to be some thin parts of this brisket that are just going to burn up anyways, and you're not going to want to eat. So go ahead and just trim them off and make your brisket nice and uniform. And when you're trimming the fat cap, you're going to want to go for about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. This even fat cap is going to lead to even rendering. Now, when it comes to seasoning, a lot of people like to inject their meat. They also like to use marinades. That's not me. What I like to do is just put a nice dry rub onto the meat. And when it comes to brisket, usually a simple rub is going to be the best. So you're going to want to use salt. You're going to want to use some pepper. You could also use some garlic. Just be mindful that when you pick your salt and when you pick your pepper, you're going to want to use the coarse stuff. This is because you don't want the seasoning to actually penetrate too far into the meat and stay within the meat. You want it more so on the outside to develop that nice bark. Now, there's about 1,000,001 different rubs out there that you can use on the brisket. So you could also choose your favorite one. Just go with one that has a nice blend of salt, pepper, garlic as your base, maybe some paprika. And if you need a little spice, go with one that has a little bit of cayenne in it. And if you're new to backyard barbecue and you need some help with cooking times and temperatures, I have a free guide. It covers everything from meats to veggies and is perfect for getting started. Just drop a 100 in the comments below and I'll send it your way. Now, when it comes to smoking the brisket, wood really matters. So you're going to want to choose either post oak or hickory. These are strong hardwoods and they're going to give you that nice smoky flavor. If you want a nice light flavor, go with cherry or apple wood. Or you can make your own wood blend and add them to the smoker. And that's what I actually did here. I added hickory and apple wood. The temperature that you're going to be looking for of your smoker is going to be between 225 degrees Fahrenheit and 250 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to be the sweet spot for low and slow. Now, if you want hot and fast, you're probably going to be looking at about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, you can definitely cook your brisket hot and fast, but I don't recommend it. Low and slow allows the fat to render properly. Now, if you cook it hot, that fat is just going to render way too fast, and you're not going to have any fat left in the meat, which is going to lead to a dry brisket. Eventually, you're going to hit the stall. This usually happens right around an internal temperature of 150 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is caused by the moisture on top of the brisket evaporating. Now, this stall is completely normal. It's going to happen every single time, and there's not much that you can do in order to prevent it. You're just going to have to get through it, and patience is going to be key. You have two different options. One option is just to let the brisket continue smoking, which a lot of people do. The other one is going to be using what is called the Texas crutch. And the Texas crunch is essentially just wrapping the brisket. And you have two different options here. You can either do it in butcher paper or you can do it in aluminum foil. Now, when you do it in butcher paper, you're going to get a nice hard crust and the fat is going to render perfectly. You're going to be golden. Now, what I prefer is actually doing it in aluminum foil because it traps the moisture and it almost steams the brisket a little bit, making it ultra tender. The one con here is that your bar is not going to be as crunchy. It's not going to be as hard as if you had it within that butcher paper. Now, one thing you can't really live without is going to be a temperature probe. You got to know your internal temperature of your brisket. If you don't know the internal temperature, you're just going to set yourself up for failure, and we don't want to do that. This is a pretty expensive piece of meat, and we want it to come out right every single time. So use a temperature probe. I like to use the Meter Plus. The Meter Plus is a Bluetooth temperature probe that you just stick within the meat. I'm actually using it right now. You use the app, you set it for your desired internal temperature, and then it's going to give you an estimated time of the cook. This allows you to keep an eye on your meat and prevent it from drying out. Now, when you wrap the brisket, what you're going to want to do is leave it in the foil or in the butcher paper until you reach an internal temperature of 200 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to be the sweet spot. This is where you're going to get the juiciest brisket you've ever had. Now, how you're going to test for doneness is a couple different ways. One is going to be the internal temperature of between 200 and 205 degrees Fahrenheit. The other option is going to be the probe test. What you're going to want to do is take your temperature probe. You're going to poke it into the meat. And if it goes through like a hot knife through butter, in and out with very little resistance, then you know that your brisket is ready to go. You could also do a bend test. This is probably the most unreliable way of testing for doneness. I don't recommend it, but I have seen people do it. What you're going to want to do is pick up the brisket, and if it bends under its own weight without breaking apart, it should be done. Once you reach that desired internal temperature, what you're going to want to do is let the brisket rest. And this is going to be a process that's going to take anywhere from an hour to 4 hours. What you're going to want to do is wrap the brisket in a towel, place it either in the oven or place it into a cooler. So once it hits that internal temperature, we want that internal temperature to come down before we slice it. And the internal temperature that we're going to be looking for before slicing is going to be about 160 to 170. And when it comes to slicing in the brisket, what you're going to want to do is slice against the grain. On a brisket, the grain runs in two different directions. It's going to be in one direction for the flat, and it's going to be a completely different direction for the point. What you're going to want to do is separate the point and the flat and then slice against the grain. I recommend using a nice sharp knife. You don't want the meat breaking apart. You want nice even slices about 1/4 of an inch wide. Don't want the meat breaking apart. Make sure that that knife is nice and sharp. A dull knife is not going to help you here. So now you know 5 easy steps to get juicy, tender brisket in your own backyard. Your brisket is going to have that perfect smoke ring. It's going to be tender. It's going to be juicy. It's going to have that perfect smoke ring, that perfect bark, and it's going to be downright delicious. Everybody's going to love it. But here's the thing. It's not the only way to cook brisket. Check out this video right here where I cooked the most tender, delicious brisket I've ever cooked in my life. Check out the video next. I'll see you there.